Writing for magazines is a comprehensive discourse on learning the artistic techniques of expression through words and pictures in ways that appeal the target readers to motivate and sustain their subscription. The creative writing teams for magazines are always looking for dope to sell in print. This module will discuss the various characteristics and categories of magazines and will teach students about how to write meaningful and sell-worthy content for magazines, including feature articles, magazine columns, and advertisement copies. The language and style of writing depends upon the category of magazine you are writing for. If it is a news magazine, feature articles will be written in inverted pyramid style, and if it is a gossip magazine, it will cover paparazzi stories in inverted funnel style. Every magazine has its own targeted, segmented, and positioned readership. Chord hitting with the target audience and multiplying the number of readers depends on the juiciness of the served content and the purpose of the consumer for reading the magazine. Pulp fiction stories in magazines are page turners for niche readers, whereas fashion and lifestyle magazines are glanced through just for pastime or leisure. The module will allow students to gain understanding about the writing styles of magazines through several examples and illustrations. The subject expert for today is Professor F.B. Khan. He is a renowned photographer and media expert currently teaching at AJK MCRC, Jamia Millia Islamia, New Delhi, and I am Sakshi Mandwal. Before we begin to learn how to write for magazines, let us understand the characteristic features and categories of magazines first. Magazines are published weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, quarterly, and yearly depending on the category and readership. Think about how magazines are different in various aspects from newspapers. It is believed that magazines have a longer shelf life than newspapers, and advertisers give more ads in magazines because they allow more time for a reader to stay with the ad. But it is also true that newspapers have become a daily consumption necessity while magazines are still a luxury to a large number of people, given to their cost. Magazines are made up of superior paper quality than newspapers, and printing is much better than a newspaper. Magazine readership is limited. Magazine reader has to be literate and educated to comprehend the content, which is a limitation of magazines as mass medium in India, given to the rate of literacy. The reach and preference of newspaper is wider than a magazine. For content like public announcements, tender job advertisements, newspapers are a better media channel. For content like relationship, advice, latest developments in cinema stars' lives, magazines are a better media channel. Writing for a magazine is less hectic than newspapers because the schedules of publications are different. Newspaper is published every day, so writers have to work in morning to night shifts, whereas for magazines, the writing process is elongated and flexible. There are two fundamental categories of magazines. First, magazines of general interest. These magazines that have scattered and diverse target readership. They cover a wide range of topics from politics to food to fashion to lifestyle. For example, India Today and Frontline magazine. Second, magazines of specialized interests. These are magazines with a niche readership. These magazines cater to specific topics within a specialized theme like sports magazines or cinema gossip magazines. For example, cinema magazine Stardust or economic development magazine Economic and Political Weekly EPW. How to begin writing for a magazine? First, study the target magazine carefully. To understand the nature of content it publishes and the kind of writers who write for this magazine, permanently hired or freelance writers. Get an idea about the range of topics it covers. Notice the style of writing. Is it factual or literary or humorous or sentimentally evoking? Second, Study the target readership of the magazine. Visit the magazine's website to understand the nature of its target readership. These are the two people you would have to write for. Their needs, interests, tastes, and preferences are important selling factors for the magazine. If you learn to write according to their interests, there are better chances of you growing as an intelligent writer. Third, study the content components of a magazine. Get to know if the magazine publishes only long articles and advertisements or if it has columns, cartoons, interviews, short and long stories, experience articles of people, book reviews, etc. This will allow you to understand the scope of content writing for the magazine. Fourth, select one content component. Decide what you want to write for: an article, a column, an ad copy, or an interview. Fifth, brainstorm ideas to select a theme and topic for writing an article or interview. Ideas can be extracted from local news events, conversations with colleagues, or checking the content of the previous issues of the magazine. The piece of writing has to be interesting and it should give readers some food of thought. Sixth, research on topic and check feasibility. Identify the aspects of the topic can be covered through your writing. Check the feasibility of the selected topics in terms of availability of sources and resources. Seventh, find the peg first. A peg is the most important piece of the article or introduction to the interview written in the first two lines. What is the most engaging and captivating piece of information? It has to be highlighted in the article or interview in the middle of the page or the beginning of the page. Peg has to be very informative and entertaining for the readers to continue reading the material out of curiosity. Eighth, find interview subject and sources. You have to find out whose interview can be interesting for the readers and the various sources that can help you gain the background information about the person to interview. Two approaches for writing magazine interview. A. Funnel questioning approach is the technique of interview writing that is used to write the general questions first, followed by the specific questions. This technique is used to warm up with the subject in the beginning to make the interviewed subject more comfortable in eventually being asked difficult questions. However, this writing technique can be very boring for the readers. For example, if the heading of the interview is about a film star's daily diet, the readers want to get straight to the topic rather than being dragged through the general questions asked in the beginning. The whole interview has to revolve around food for the targeted readers to be juicy. B. Inverted funnel questioning approach is the technique of interview writing wherein the specific questions are asked first, followed by the general questions. This is comparatively the more preferred technique because it gets to the topic straight, and that is what readers have been eager to read. For example, if the interview is about the baby of a celebrity, the writer has to revolve the interview around the pre-pregnancy and post-pregnancy period of the celebrity rather than asking general questions. The readers want the actual dope, and the most interesting aspects of the interview can be highlighted in a blurb in the middle or starting of the interview, in a bold and strong font color to add emphasis. Ninth, prepare a draft of the write-up using the software for magazine writing. Adjust the font size, encapsulations, writing in paragraphs and columns. Proofread the content once it's ready. Double check the sources of information and give picture credits to photographers. Read your draft and remove jargons or repeated phrases and sentences. You can send a copy of the write-up to your co-workers to get their feedback and to know the scope of improvement. Writing articles for magazines. Writing for magazines is an art of strategic content creation to hook up the readers and to sustain their readership. Let us study the components of magazine articles. First, ticket on the meat refers to the heading or headline of the article. The heading has to be bait for the readers to consume the article from corner to corner. The heading should not be of more than 4 to 5 words. Start with a tentatively framed heading called a working title. Heading should have the crux of the matter written in an article. Focus on who rather than why in the heading. Try using alliteration in the article. For example, dainty dolls, famous 5. Write Hindi words in italics form. Second, lead or hook is the introduction of the article that has to answer the questions of who did what, when, where, to whom, why and how. It is the most informative part of the article. It is called hook because it plays the main role in hooking the readers to the article. Articles in magazines have to be conversational, asking questions or raising concerns to the readers. Third, background of the story. Search the facts and figures related to the topic of the article and build up the local, national and international scenario of the issue using the variables like economy, politics, social systems and the cultural dimensions of the topic. Do not make it boring for the readers with too many facts and figures. Fourth, give interesting angles to the story. The topic of the article has to be treated from different angles and fresh perspectives have to be given to all stories to make the readers think in multiple directions. Even if the topic has been done to death, the task of creative director is to introduce fresh angles in the story. For example, the antisocial effects of using social media are discussed in many articles. So the new perspective could be picking up a less discussed age bracket, which is 60 to 70 years old senior citizens, about the antisocial effects of social media. Fifth, quotations from the interviewed subjects are to be inserted after the introduction and background of the story is clearly written. These quotations add human interest to the stories and make them interesting to read. Interview subjects can be a victim of violence based on whom the article is written about. Sixth, an overview of the scenario. The article has to be written in the context of the bigger picture and the impact of the issue has to be discussed with reference to the life of the readers. This is one of the ways to end the article. Seventh, highlights of the story are to be added in blurbs using bold fonts. These highlights bring attention towards the article and make the readers want to know more. Look at the magazine article given below. Notice that the article has certain componential elements embedded in it. First, image, to lend support to the textual matter of the article. Second, heading is an interesting quotation extracted from the interviewed subject. Third, hook or lead is written before the article actually begins. It is written in different font color and in bold letters to lend emphasis. It summarizes the most important aspects of the article in 2 to 3 lines. Fourth, columns. Notice that the magazine article is written in several columns, separated by the white margins. Fifth, blurb. The most interesting quotation, the subject is inserted in a round blurb made using the digital software for magazine writing. Sixth, subheadings are highlighted in bold and a different ink rather than rest of the article. These subheadings are used to form the sections of the article. Seventh, quotations. Well extracted quotations from the sources can make the article look more credible. It is better if it comes from the authentic and available to publish source. Tips to ease out the article writing process. First, create a rough outline of the article before you begin to write by deciding the sections and subheadings of the article. You can jot down the points on paper that you want to elaborate in the article. Second, write the article in short and simple sentences. Too long sentences and use of jargons in a sentence can be difficult to comprehend. Third, create a working title for the article which is tentative and can be changed later. Fourth, if the article is about an investigative approach, use inverted pyramid style which places the most important information first, followed by less and least important information. If the article is about interview, use the simple and straightforward approach. Fifth, decide the layout of your article on the article writing software. That is, where will the images be placed? What will be the font style, font size of headings, subheadings and the body of the article. Sixth, select the hook line from the personal experience of a person or a thought-provoking quotation or a very interesting or surprising example. Seventh, conclude the article by making a strong, impactful statement or a quote from the subject that stays with the reader after one has finished reading the article. Eighth, after you have written the article, make sure that you get the feedback from the sub-editors and the editor who can suggest more changes to be done in it. Writing interviews for magazines. A magazine article gets strengthened with interviewing the sources of information. It is very important to break the ice between the interviewer and the interviewed subject and warm up by talking before the interview begins. A lot of conversations and interviews revolve around tea and coffee in India. It is better if the subject feels comfortable before the interview begins. Having the subject sitting next to the interviewer in person makes the experience of interview better than a virtual interview or a telephonic interview. Do's and don'ts about writing questions for magazine interviews. First, research about the person to be interviewed, as you should have the background information about the person you are interviewing to ask better questions. Second, preferably use inverted funnel. Approaching for interview writing in magazines. It means write the specific questions first, followed by general questions, because readers might not have the time to read the entire interview and may want to glimpse through it in the magazine. So the first two questions and the questions placed in the middle column of the page are important for this, is where the reader's gaze would go the most. Third, club the close-ended questions together instead of lengthening the interview with questions that have replies like yes or no. For open-ended questions, framing the questions should be done in a way that maximum information can be extracted. Fourth, avoid writing double-barrel questions, that is, two questions asked as one question. Fifth, avoid asking leading questions that can lead to a particular answer. For example, do you think politicians are pseudo-secular, isn't it? Writing a magazine column. Columns in magazines can be spiritual, economical, political, and social or business-oriented. Columns can be based on advices for beauty, relationships, astrology, lifestyle, parenting, nutrition, and fitness. The voice of the writer has to come forward in the columns, and the readers develop interest in reading the voice of the writer. Writing for column means coming up with fresh content every week or month. For writing a good column, the writer should read the columns of experienced columnists and understand the ways in which a narrative is interwoven with facts and quotes. You may want to create a peculiar and representative style of writing a column that is true to your identity. Be clear and consistent in your approach and sync it with your objectives. Tips for writing magazine columns. First, write your column in simple, clear, colloquial and conversational language using short sentences and paragraphs. The language used for columns is informal. However, slang language is not used in magazines conventionally. Second, columns in magazines are mostly written in Associated Press, that is AP style. Learn about how to use the style on the internet while writing. Third, strictly adhere to the prescribed word limit of the column. Fourth, always begin a new concept with a new paragraph, even if it implies that a paragraph has only 2 to 3 sentences. Fifth, columns are written as first-person accounts using active voice and direct speech. Personal experiences are shared by the columnist to build up the levels of intimacy with the readers. Third-person account is not used while writing a column. For example, I think mainstream cinema in India is driven by male-centric films, and it's about time that filmmakers break this norm, correct? This is written as a first-person account using direct speech, and this is the way a column should be written. It would be inappropriate for a columnist to write the same sentence as a third-person account using indirect speech like, Maria Vasti, the author, feels that mainstream cinema in India is driven by male-centric films, and it's about time that this norm is broken by the filmmakers. Writing advertorials for magazines. Advertorials in magazines have been very common since the birth of magazine as a genre of mass media. Advertisers invest in magazine ads because it becomes easy to segment, target, and position the target readers in terms of demographic and psychographic variables. Therefore, relevant ads in magazines can impact the sales of the products and services. Most magazines have advertorials that are paid spaces to be filled with ads from a company, brand or event organization. Components of magazine advertorials. First, headline has to be of minimum words and maximum impact. Second, tagline has to create brand recall. Third, empty space has its role in giving emphasis to the other side of the image, which has content. Fourth, pictures add life to the print ad story. Fifth, product or service description is written in 2 to 3 lines with benefits and features of the product mentioned in smaller font than the tagline. Sixth, call to action is the action that the advertisers want the consumer to take after reading the ad in the magazine. It is mostly the purchase action of the target consumers. Seventh, contact information. Advertisers mention as to how to execute the call to action by giving contact information in the ad. It may be a website or email address or toll-free number for the consumers to use for knowing more about the advertised product or service. Now let us look at the following magazine advertisements and notice the presence and absence of the above mentioned elements. Examples of magazine advertisements. First, illustration 1. Drunk driving kills. In this advertisement, image is in the middle of the frame, which defies rule of thirds. The font size of text is very small for readers to notice. The ad gives a message, drunk driving kills. There is empty space which has not been effectively utilized. There is no call to action for consumer, and contact information is not applicable for the message. Absence of colors is to convey a sense of graveness to the ad. Therefore, it is a poor example of magazine advertising. Second, illustration 2, Lipton green tea ad. In this advertisement, image of a celebrity, a film star attracts immediate attention of the readers. The message is very clear that Lipton green tea has 0 calories that makes the consumer feel light and active. The logo of the product has been placed at the right place and there is no visual clutter in the image. The text, image and graphic balances out and bring out the message effectively. Therefore, it is a good example of magazine ad. Writing an effective ad copy for magazines. First, know your product well in terms of everything that it can offer to the customers, the benefits, the features and even the limitations. Second, research about your target audience to know what they need, want and desire. Third, create a layout of the ad on the print ad, making software and decide the color scheme of the ad. Colors have a major role to play in advertising. Select your colors that suit the product or service to be advertised. Decide where will the text appear, where will the image appear, which space is to be left empty and where to write the tagline. Fourth, keep the text short, impactful and relevant to the product or service. Make the font size of the product benefits large and write the tagline in italics and different font color than the benefits. Fifth, use simple and specific words written in conversational language. The magazine ad should communicate with the consumer and should be appealing. Sixth, use active verbs and the ad should convey a positive vibe to the consumer. Seventh, for writing taglines, alliteration, rhyming words and rhythm can be used. Eighth, do not make the ad look too text heavy. Ninth, do not use sexist or racist language and follow the rules of grammar while writing an ad copy. 10th, there are certain words that rob the effectiveness of the ad, like overuse of leading phrases like isn't it or overusing words like that, then, there. Such words are called wimpy words and the copywriter has to be cautious about not using a lot of these words repeatedly in the ad copy. Conclusion. This module has covered the various aspects of writing for magazines. The different componential elements of magazines were discussed with special emphasis on writing for feature articles, columns, interviews and advertorials. Students learned the grammatical as well as technical tips and techniques used to write in the magazines in ways that sustains the subscription of their readers. Hope this module has enhanced your understanding and given the foundation for building effective magazine writing skills. Till the next episode, it's a goodbye.